Good evening, everyone. My name is Bridget Espinosa, and I am a consultant with the Southwest Detroit Business Association, along with I'm also the program manager. Excuse me, got too many hats. I'm trying to remember which ones I'm wearing tonight. The program manager for the Michigan Hispanic Contractors Association. I'd like to welcome you all here tonight for the third in a three-part series on Comerica Business Sense. So it's a virtual boot camp that we've created. This will be a bilingual presentation. We will be translating or doing a translation of each slide, or at least a summary of each slide. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Michael Cheatham, who will be our presenter for this evening.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. I was going to introduce myself in Spanish, but I could not remember the word for manager, so I'm going to leave that alone. Michael Cheatham, I'm sorry?
Gerente.
Gerente, that's what I thought. But yep. I'm still going to leave it alone because now I'm being recorded, so it's too much pressure. So I will say, hola. My name is Michael Cheatham. I am the banking center manager at our 5 Mile and Kinlock office here in Redford, Michigan. And I am pleased to be able to talk to you all, have a conversation really about insurance for small business. I'm happy to have some insurance professionals on the line to kind of back me up because this is a highly technical area. And so I'm going to give some really general information, and then they can fill in the details for us. Okay, so our objectives today are to identify the types of insurance required for a small business, identify other types of insurance a small business should consider, and then explain why insurance is important for a small business.
Okay. Los objetivos para hoy son identificar los tipos de seguridad que se requieren para un negocio pequeño. También vamos a identificar otros tipos de seguridad que se pueden considerar. Y vamos a explicar por qué el seguro es tan importante para un pequeño negocio.
So some insurance that your business may require may be due to state and local requirements. One of the really tricky parts about insurance is that it's not only affected by the type of business that you have, but also where you do business. So you want to be sure to check with your local, federal, and state governments to determine what types of insurance are necessary for the type of business that you're doing. There may be specific medical insurance that you need based on your employees, as well as automotive coverage if you're using a vehicle in connection with your business.
Muy bien. Como esta presentación se puede dar por todos los Estados Unidos, es muy importante saber cuáles son los requisitos o cuáles formas son obligatorios en cada lugar, cada ciudad, cada estado, cada condado, cada lugar tiene sus requerimientos diferentes. También es posible que algún tipo de seguridad médico con cobertura específico se puede estar obligatorio para ciertos empleados. También hay seguro de auto cuando tienes un vehículo que utilizas para tu negocio, como una persona que trabaja en construcción, por ejemplo. Sé que tenemos algunos de los contratistas aquí. Entonces, todo eso se puede manejar con asesoría con uno de los agentes que tenemos aquí en la llamada. Entonces, con mucha confianza pueden hablar con Stephanie o con Chad a rato, y les ofrezco otra vez que puedan hacer cita con Mayra y Stephanie sin ningún problema para que puedan contestar todas sus preguntas.
Great. And so there's different types of liability insurance. There's professional liability insurance. So based on licenses that you might have, there's specific insurance for that. Certificates of business or professional business registrations. There's general liability insurance, and then you have directors and officers insurance. And so one of the things that you run into oftentimes with these different types of insurance is kind of keeping all of them straight. which is why we always talk about having trusted advisors, people that you can turn to who can provide you with this type of technical expertise. So in addition to a great banker like you would get from Comerica, you want to have an accountant available, an insurance specialist available, and so on, to help you navigate some of these more technical and more sophisticated aspects of running your business. And then,
you have something else?
I was just going to talk about the fact that, and the type of insurance that you needed a year ago or 2 years ago may have changed. So that's another reason why you want to have your trusted advisors available to you so that they can keep you informed about changes in the landscape as it relates to insurance and some of the other requirements related to doing business.
Yeah, that's really important. Thank you, Michael. Can I ask a quick question of our insurance people before I translate this? And Michael, you might know the answer. Directors and officers, is that also called errors and omissions, or are you going to go to that at a later date?
Actually, no. I can tell you that at least in my experience, directors and officers is actually insurance that covers the leaders of the organization. You see it a lot of times with actually nonprofits,
right?
For their boards of directors, as it relates to decisions that they might make that at some point could be litigated.
Okay.
And errors and omissions, I believe is, and I'm sure one of our experts can step in and help me out, but I believe errors and omissions is related primarily to documentation and things that you might do on behalf of others.
Okay.
And it's insurance to protect you as the practitioner in case you make a mistake that causes a loss to someone else.
Right. Yeah. So that as a consultant, that's something that has been recommended to me to carry that type of insurance. Are we going to cover errors and omissions a little bit later, or is that not brought up?
I think we might touch on it, but not in depth.
Okay. So I'd like to ask Stephanie and Chad at some point during our presentation to speak to that, because we do have a number of consultants that we work with as well as my own company. And so that would be something that may be helpful for all of us. So entonces, una de las recomendaciones siempre es que tengas gente profesional que te puedan dar asesoría directa acerca de tu contabilidad y tu seguranza. Esas son las dos actividades más importantes de tener un profesionista, una persona certificada para que te ayude en tomar las decisiones, tanto para escoger el seguro correcto como mantenerte al tanto, porque se cambian las leyes de las responsabilidades que uno necesita. Me puedo imaginar que la mayoría de ustedes supieron que este año cambiaron las leyes de seguridad de auto, pero eso también afectó el seguro de salud. So I noticed that we have a couple of people that have just added, so I just wanted to let you know that this will be a bilingual presentation. And so if you're coming in, please stay tuned. Hola, Eduardo, ¿cómo estás?
Hola, muy bien, ¿y ustedes?
Bien, bien. Entonces, hay seguranza de lo que le llaman a professional liability, que eso como es para proteger a una persona certificada, alguien con una licencia. Eso sería, por ejemplo, para un contratista. Hay ciertas profesiones que requieren este tipo de seguro. Entonces, es muy importante que lo tengan. Y eso es algo, otra vez, repito, que hablar con un profesionista que está trabajando en eso, que sabe mucho, es muy importante. También hay seguranzas generales que solamente te protejan, y si estás en una asociación sin fines de lucro, deben de sacar uno para los directores y los presidente, vicepresidente, etcétera. Entonces, mantente al tanto con un profesional, se recomienda. All right, Michael, back to you.
Okay, so here are some different types of insurance that might be necessary for some businesses that I know, we have the Hispanic Contractors Association, but restaurants need specific insurance because they deal in food. Construction, of course, there's contractors liability. And then, you know, auto repair shops have liability insurance as well. One of the things whenever I talk about insurance is I like to have people think about how likely is it that something that you do in your business could hurt someone else and or get you sued. And the more likely it is that the business that you do has that as part of the risks of those businesses, the more likely you are to need insurance. And so you can see where food, of course, there's so many opportunities to have an issue there. Same with construction, and then, you know, with auto repair.
Meeting.
I'm sorry?
Meeting.
I couldn't quite understand.
Yeah, sorry, he was just coming in the meeting and he was probably just sharing with somebody else.
So those are just some examples of the types of insurance that you might consider. So a very important type of insurance is workers'
go back to that one so I can translate it.
Oh, sorry.
Algunos ejemplos de seguro muy específico para ciertas industrias. Si vendes comida, si tienes algo de comida, es muy necesario que tengas un seguranza específico para comida. Y luego también si manejas una compañía de construcción, igual hay tipo de seguranza general para contratistas. Igual una tiendita, un taller de llantas o de autos, igual requiere un seguro general de negocio. Y lo que dice Michael, que es muy importante, es que tienes que pensar en el negocio que tienes, qué tan probable o posible es que alguien te va a demandar o que algo pueda suceder como algún tipo de accidente, por ejemplo, en un restaurante con comida que alguien se enferme por algo que comiste o que dicen que se enfermaron por algo que comieron en una compañía de construcción, tanto para cubrirte a ti como a tus empleados y tus subcontratistas como tus clientes. Ese tipo de seguridad es muy importante. Igual un taller de autos, muy fácilmente se podría causar algún problema y podría tener algún tipo de problema, pues que se tiene que resolver en una demanda. Entonces, eso es muy importante. So I'd like to take one quick second, just because we had a number of people add since we began.
Okay.
This is a recorded webinar, and we will be providing the link at the end of the presentation so that you can catch up at the beginning if you missed a couple of slides or if you want to review any of it. Also, if you have not yet done so, would you please put in the chat your name, your company, if you have already started your company or your organization, and either an email address or a phone number so that we can reach you again. Les pido a todos que por favor en el chateo que pongan su nombre, el nombre de su compañía y su información de contacto, que sea su celular o su correo electrónico, su email, para que nos podamos estar en contacto con ustedes de largo plazo. Gracias. All right, Michael, go ahead and go on to the next slide, please.
And I know, Bridget, you and I had this conversation before, but I am going to stop my video so I can kind of let my hair down a little bit.
No problem, no problem.
People don't have to keep watching.
My glasses are being weird.
Right. So,
So
based on the type of business that you have, there are certain types of insurance that are required, but in general, you want to think about the amount of liability or the chances that somebody could be hurt through your business or through the service that you provide as you consider your insurance and how much to actually purchase. Workers' compensation insurance, this is it's a well-known insurance in terms of people hearing about it, but they may not necessarily know exactly what it does. And so what it does is actually protects your employees from injuries or illnesses that may happen as part of their work. And so it pays for rehabilitation, retraining, payments to beneficiaries and medical payout limits. It's required by most states, and it can be private or state administered. But it is a very important insurance to have because, as we know, You know, we actually do live in a litigious society where, you know, there are many opportunities for peril as it relates to the type of work that employees are doing. And while they're under your roof or in service of your organization, there's protections that are necessary to protect them.
Okay, entonces, el seguro que se llama compensación para el trabajador protege en contra cualquier enfermedad o daño que alguien, herida, que alguien se encuentra trabajando. Puede pagar para rehabilitación o un entrenamiento de nuevo si ya no pueden trabajar en lo mismo. También le dan pagos a los beneficiarios y ayuda también con los límites de seguro médico. Se requiere en la mayoría de los estados. Yo creo que aquí en Michigan, si no estoy equivocada, sí se requiere. Y puedes comprar privado o puedes comprar administrado por el estado. So I believe as for the state of Michigan, and please correct me if I'm wrong, everyone, that it is a requirement for all employees to have workers' comp insurance in the state of Michigan if you are a W-2 employee. Is that a correct statement?
That is correct. More than one employee as well.
Thank you, Chad. I appreciate that.
And one other thing, if I can chime in real quick.
Please.
The important thing on workers' compensation is, you know, you have an employee and you don't have workers' compensation, that employee can come after you on a personal level. And, you know, there is not a limit for the amount of money that you can pay out on injured employee. What workers' comp does, it kind of nullifies the liability portion of it. So standard practice in my business is we do $1 million in liability coverage for the employer's liability. So it caps at $1 million. There's nothing more that an employee can come after you for.
Okay.
So it's very important that, you know, you got to have workers' compensation, at least
Great.
one employee on the books.
All right. Thank you so much, Chad. That's really super helpful. So lo que decía Chad es que es muy importante ese tipo de seguro porque tu empleado te puede dar una demanda y pueden demandarte personalmente. No estás protegido si no tienes la cobertura correcta. Y lo que él recomienda es $1 millón para este tipo de seguro y ese es el máximo a que ellos te pueden demandar y te cubre 100% para cualquier otro gasto, cualquier otra demanda. Entonces, muy importante eso. All right. Thank you for your contribution, Chad. All right, yeah. Michael, we're ready for the next slide.
And as part of this kind of overarching conversation, it's important to note that, you know, insurance seems to be one of those types of expenses that almost, you know, it feels in many cases to be optional, but, you know, without proper insurance coverage, you're really putting your business at risk. And so as business owners are thinking of areas and ways to save money, to reduce expenses, insurance is probably not an area that you want to short yourself on or look for shortcuts.
Entonces dice Michael que muchas veces parece que un seguro es algo opcional o solamente necesitas la cobertura mínima, pero la verdad es que es una inversión en tu futuro y es algo extremadamente importante porque te puede destruir tu compañía y pues y hasta tus bienes personales si no tienes suficiente. Entonces, es una de las cosas que realmente tienes que incluir en tu presupuesto anual y incluirlo como un negocio formal. Muy, muy importante.
So another really important insurance is unemployment insurance. And so it benefits those workers that become unemployed through no fault of their own. Usually we're talking layoffs and things like that, where they're willing and able to work and they're actively searching. As you can see, this is federally regulated and state administered. So just by virtue of the fact that the federal government has taken control of it to monitor it and to ensure that it's enforced, should give you some idea of how important it is. You want to make sure that you stay on top of your payments because, again, this is an area where, failing to stay on top of this could really have very costly effects on your business. And so you want to, there's several resources, but you want to check with your state and federal departments of labor to determine what your responsibilities are as it relates to unemployment insurance.
Okay, could I ask either Chad or Stephanie to drop into the chat the link for the unemployment insurance link for the state of Michigan for me? So este seguro es, ya hemos visto con esa pandemia qué tan importante es tener su seguranza de desempleo y los beneficios son para los que se quedan sin trabajo sin su culpa propia, ¿no? Los que están hábiles y listos, disponibles para trabajar y están buscando activamente, está regulado por el gobierno federal y está administrado por cada estado. Y luego tienes que conectarte con las reglas del estado para poder saber exactamente cuánto te va a pagar. Es súper importante que hagas tus pagos y que evites penalidades y acciones que te puedan hasta poner en la cárcel por no pagar bien lo que necesitas. So I'd like to share just kind of anecdotally, I'm a newer business. I've been only in business for 5 years. And for the first 4 years, it was just me, myself, and I. And so I did not have employees, and I'm an LLC, single member LLC. So I didn't count myself as an employee either. So I did not carry any of these types of insurance previously because I didn't need to, right? I was a single member LLC, and my industry is not heavy litigated, right? Most people don't sue their business coaches and they're nonprofit consultants. So this was not something that I had, and so this was something I had to learn, and there was a little bit of a learning curve there. So I hired my first 2 employees in January, Maida and my other outreach assistant, Alyssa. And with their W-2 employment came unemployment insurance and workman's comp and all of those other things. I personally use QuickBooks, which made it very, very easy to set up. It kind of walked me through the whole process and takes care of all of those payments and things like that, and notifies me when things are due. So I'm very grateful for that, but I also hired a bookkeeper. So as Michael shared earlier, having experts who are, trained and certified and licensed in different areas such as accounting, bookkeeping, insurance, having trusted advisors that can help you through these processes is extremely important. So although I am a business coach, I am not a bookkeeper. And so I hired a bookkeeper, and she handles my payroll and makes sure that, somebody to double check that everything is done properly, and all the taxes are paid and all of the insurances are paid, et cetera. So I, again, highly, highly recommend hiring people who are skilled in these areas. Les doy nomás mi historia personal, que mis primeros 4 años como dueña de negocio nomás fui yo, entonces no tenía ningún seguranza, no estaba pagando ningún empleado, entonces no tenía estos gastos ni sabía bien o mucho sobre esos procedimientos. Contraté a mis primeras 2 empleadas en enero de este año, Mayra y otra que se llama Lisa, y tuve que aprender sobre el seguro de desempleo y el workman's comp y todo eso, y al final decidí contratar a una contadora que me ayuda en hacer el proceso de pagarlo. También utilizo un programa que se llama QuickBooks, que me ayuda muchísimo porque me avisa cuando necesito pagar al gobierno y está conectado con mi cuenta de cheques. Entonces, todo está súper conectado y me da aviso, además de que tengo una persona profesionista que me apoya en todo. Entonces, realmente no les puedo recomendar más de contratar a alguien que te ayude con todos estos procesos. All right, Michael, go ahead.
So other types of insurance to consider are property insurance, and that, of course, guards against the loss or theft of, any item of value that's part of your business. So you're talking, your buildings, your equipment, and inventory that you either are receiving or that you already have in stock.
Can you go back to that?
Do you want to do that one, or you want me to finish this one? I'll go back. All right,
Okay.
Go ahead and do that.
Ok, otro tipo de seguranza que debes de considerar es seguranza para tus propiedades, que sea un edificio comercial, el equipo que traes o tu inventario, que así todo lo que si vendes ropa, si vendes productos de algún tipo. A veces hemos visto ahorita últimamente que ha habido muchos problemas de cosas que se han demorado tanto en el correo que ni valen la pena o que se han muerto o que algo les ha pasado. Entonces, todo eso es algo que debes de considerar. I'd also like to share a quick commercial property issue that we've had in Southwest Detroit. So for some reason on Werner, we've had a number of car versus building accidents, whether it was a drunk driver or a crash and grab. We've had a couple of those on Werner, and we have seen the devastation to those businesses who didn't carry enough insurance or had no insurance at all, had allowed it to lapse. And they are then completely having to pay out of pocket for those types of damages. So, having property insurance will ensure, quite literally, that you can make repairs as needed, in the case of a theft or a natural disaster. So we cannot recommend this enough. Es muy importante eso de tener tu propiedad asegurado. Hemos tenido varias veces en la Werner que un coche contra el edificio y el coche ganó, y algunos de los dueños de negocio no tuvieron seguro comercial y tuvieron que pagar todos los daños y las reparaciones de su bolsa. Y eso está bien difícil si tienes que cerrar encima de todo. Entonces, muy importante. Okay, Michael, go ahead.
All right, so some more types of insurance to consider: loss of income, life, disability, and medical. And so these are, except for the medical, these are the types of insurance that people don't often think about, that especially for smaller businesses, if the driver of the income of that business is the business owner and something happens to them, that can also mean the end of that business. But there is insurance to actually offset the loss of that income. And so as part of specific loss of income, life and disability, those are also ways to maintain the business when the actual business owner is not necessarily available to generate revenue. And of course, medical insurance, medication is not getting any cheaper. Medical care is not getting any cheaper. And so to have the peace of mind related to having insurance to help pay for those expenses can be very valuable to your business.
Entonces, otros tipos de seguridad que debes de considerar es un seguro que muchas personas ni saben que existe, que es por cualquier cosa que pierdes tu ingreso porque como dueño de negocio ya no puedes hacer lo que hacías o ya no puedes trabajar en lo mismo. Y vuelvo a decir que para un contratista eso es sin valor, ¿verdad? Así que si te lastimas o algo te sucede, eso puede garantizar que tu familia todavía siga con tu mismo ingreso por haber pagado ese tipo de póliza. Entonces, la pérdida de ingreso, igual seguro de vida puede ser hasta una inversión, pero igual en caso de que el dueño del negocio muera, puede continuar el negocio o por lo menos su familia puede recibir algo. igual de disabilidad. Si te caes herido y ya no puedes volver a trabajar, te va a pagar un ingreso por tener una disabilidad. Y pues es un obvio que el seguro médico, pues siempre hemos hablado de qué tan importante es el seguro médico, por lo mismo, ¿no? Porque por lo menos no te va a dar tanto gasto si no lo tuvieras. All you.
All right. All right. So hay preguntas. Oops, I'm sorry. I almost got myself in trouble.
Look at you. Look at you.
Now, there are some questions that you should consider as you are thinking about whether to get insurance and, again, how much. So first, of course, is the insurance required by law? And then if it's not required, should you carry it because of some of the other issues that we just discussed? Because there's no law that says that you have to have insurance on your window, but when you consider if a car drives through the front of your building, how much it's going to cost you to pay that, and how long your business is going to need to be closed and not generating revenue while you figure out how you're going to pay for it.
Ok, entonces las preguntas son, ¿qué tipo de seguro se requiere para mi negocio? Y la otra, si no se requiere, si no es obligatorio, debo de tenerlo de todas formas. Y volvemos a decir, lo mejor que puedes hacer es hablar con 2 o 3 agentes, tener asesoría directa, personal, por parte de un agente que conoce tu industria, y luego ya tomar la decisión de cuál es el mejor camino para tu negocio. Porque no quieres llegar a un punto que se tiene que cerrar tu negocio y tanto el negocio como tu familia se quedan sin ningún ingreso. Entonces, todo esto está súper importante de medir y medirlo sin compromiso con alguna gente, ¿no?
Okay, and I'm going to speed up a little bit. I realized that we're kind of going a little over.
We're okay.
So this is an area that I think is very important that our business owners should know about. The fact that there are often insurance policies that your lenders or investors require you to purchase in order to protect their investment or to ensure that you'll be able to repay the loan that you got. So there is insurance to cover business assets, cash flow. So again, if there's a situation where for some reason you're unable to generate the revenue or income that's necessary to pay your investors or to pay your loan, that there's insurance to offset that. And then insurance to cover or to make up for the loss of revenue if the owner or owners pass away.
Ok, entonces eso es muy importante y fue algo que yo aprendí trabajando con algunos clientes míos cuando sacaron préstamos. Es que para ciertos prestamistas requieren un seguro para proteger la inversión. Entonces, si por ejemplo estás utilizando tu propiedad o tu edificio para asegurar el préstamo, necesitas también tenerlo asegurado, porque si algo sucede con el edificio y luego eso es el balance del préstamo, ya no vale nada, ya no puede funcionar. Entonces ellos requieren eso. También para lo que le llaman cash flow, que es una provisión para algún tipo de interrupción del negocio, que sea reconstrucción o reparaciones, por ejemplo. Y en mi experiencia, yo he visto que la mayoría de los prestamistas comerciales requieren una póliza de disabilidad o de muerte, o sea, de vida, por si acaso se muera el dueño y entonces ese póliza ya puede pagar el préstamo de vuelta. Entonces, todo eso es muy importante y es algo que debes de hablar con tus socios, si tienes socios, o con tu familia, si tienes familia, entonces para asegurar que tengas todo en orden.
And are you still seeing the one page?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, so
just one slide at a time.
great. So the next thing I wanted to talk about really briefly, because there's a lot of questions that are part of this, but to have everyone start to think about too, what are you going to do at such point as you may not be there to run your business? So are you thinking about your succession? Who's going to run the business, or is there a plan to pass the business along to someone else? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this page, but I do want people to start thinking about that as well. What happens once they're not available to run their business?
So I would like to recommend that everyone grab a sheet of paper or sticky note, something next to them, and jot down some of these questions. And if not, grab the PowerPoint in the recording after the fact and take some time to really do this and work on your business. Doing our business is what we do best, but sometimes we don't take the time to really build our business properly and take care of all of these what ifs. And this is the responsible thing to do. And especially, I think, a lot of us had some shockers over the last 6 months or so due to COVID-19. And we've thought about our own mortality. What would happen if I were to get ill, even if you don't pass away, but even if you got seriously ill for an extended period of time, what would happen to your company? And so these are very, very important questions to ask yourself. So les recomiendo que si tienen un papelito que puedan empezar a contestar estas preguntas, y si no, que vuelvan a mirar la presentación y que tomen su tiempo y trabajar en el negocio, no solamente haciendo el trabajo, ¿me entiendes? Entonces es muy importante. Tienes una lista de las personas que pueden correr tu negocio si en algún momento te caíste enfermo, que sea por COVID-19 o por alguna otra cosa. Hay alguien que podría tomar tu negocio si te fueras a morir, y si tienes algún plan para tu negocio por si acaso te mueras y hay algún miembro de la familia o algún amigo de mucha confianza que podrías nombrar para liquidar los bienes del negocio. Es muy importante eso. I'd also like to take a moment to let people know that they can start asking questions in the chat. We're getting ready for the Q&A portion, and so if you want to ask your questions in the chat, this is extremely important. And so we're going to open the floor to questions in just a couple minutes.
Yeah. And so here's some more questions. So I'm just going to click through this quickly, but these are just along the same lines. Again, what's going to happen to your business if you're not here? So
¿Qué pasaría si tú no estuvieras? Si algunos de los empleados pueden tomar el liderazgo de la compañía y ya empezar a ser los dueños. Si podrías venderlo a los empleados, y si tienes suficiente seguro de vida para cubrir todos los gastos del negocio.
Then we're going to jump into something that I'm sure is very near and dear to the hearts of our contractors.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Confusing. We could do a whole workshop, I think, just on this. Si los contratistas quieren que hagamos alguna otra presentación más larga sobre los bonds o seguro de trabajo, de proyecto, favor de avisarnos, y Mayra y yo podríamos encontrar algún experto de este tema. So go ahead and do a quick overview.
Okay. Well, the most important thing about bonds is that it's an insurance that puts you in a position that if for some reason you are unable to fulfill an agreement that you've made to provide a product or service, there's insurance to make your customer whole. So that if you're for some reason unable to build the building that you promised or to provide the service that you promised, your customer is not harmed, or at least is not harmed as much by your inability to perform or produce. And so oftentimes you see bonding relative to government contracts, because of course, what you don't want to do is have a situation where you have a contract to build a bridge that is supposed to benefit a particular community, and then for some reason you're unable to now build that bridge, and so commerce stops. So this way, there is money set aside to ensure that whether you can build it or not, that bridge still gets built based upon the agreement that you created.
That was a really good explanation, Michael. It's one of those sometimes difficult things for us to explain, especially to our immigrant contractors. So déjame ver si puedo repetir lo que dijo Michael, que lo dijo en una manera muy clara. Que los bonds básicamente es un seguro que haces por proyecto para asegurar que el trabajo pueda seguir aunque tú no lo hagas. Entonces vamos a decir que te contraten para hacer un puente y a la mitad, por cualquier cosa, dejaste de construir, ya te pagaron más de la mitad, entonces el presupuesto ya no existe como antes. Ellos van a llamar a este seguro de bond y para poder completar el trabajo, aunque tú no eres el que lo haga, ¿no? Entonces, es una manera de asegurar un proyecto que el trabajo siga sin ninguna interrupción. So I hope that I did that justice.
I like the word interruption because that was the word I wish I would have thought of. That's the right word.
All right, well, good.
Right. So I'm going to skip these next two slides. They just go back and rehash the reasons that you might want to consider insurance. So,
okay.
So
all of these reasons, las razones por las cuales debes de tener seguro.
Yeah. And then this one is other considerations related to, like we talked about, where you're doing business, how you're doing business, and so on. And then how to select a policy. You know, does it make sense to do the work without insurance? Could you pay for it, like we talked about with the fights between the cars and the buildings on Verner? If that car drives through the front of your store, are you going to be able to pay for that repair out of your pocket? And then you, of course, want to shop around, so you want to weigh the cost of the policies and deductibles versus the coverage limits. Is it sufficient coverage? Because just because you have insurance doesn't mean that it's necessarily enough. And then oftentimes it could be too much, which is another reason why you want to have a trusted advisor to help you make those types of decisions.
Yeah, and I think, you know, bottom line, that's what we always recommend, right? That you go to 1, 2, 3 different sources to seek out different quotes and get a feel for the type of you know, business advisor they're going to be. And see if they can answer all of your questions. I think that's extremely important to note. And it's one of the reasons why we've brought 2 experts on the call. Muy importante hacer todas las preguntas. Si no tuvieras la aseguranza y si lo tuvieras que pagar de tu bolsa, podrías hacerlo. Tienes suficientes ahorros y el balance de riesgo y la estabilidad de tener la aseguranza, ¿cuál es más importante? Y hay que comparar las coberturas y deducibles y otros detalles de por lo menos 2 o 3 agentes, entender bien lo que no está cubierto. So I was actually, we kind of covered that, and so I just translated this part already, so you can go ahead and
Okay. And then this one is also what to do after the purchase. This is pretty simple. Just make sure that you have your information readily accessible. But I wanted to point out the bottom 2 because they're really related, which is review the policies periodically to make sure that the coverage is still appropriate. And then you want to meet with your agent from time to time because they can help you in that review process.
Okay, entonces, cuando ya hayas comprado tu seguro, debes de tener las pólizas accesibles fácilmente. Debes de decir a alguien más dónde están para cualquier cosa de un accidente tuyo o lo que fuera. Pueden tenerlo. Y tener los teléfonos listos a la mano también. Mantener el seguro y los procedimientos en un lugar, en un plan. Pero la otra cosa, lo más importante, es reunirte regularmente con tu agente, que sea 2 veces al año o por lo menos 1 vez al año, para hablar con ellos acerca de tu situación, si ha cambiado tu situación y asegurar que las pólizas se revisen porque las leyes cambian, tu situación cambia, And so, yeah, these types of things are really important. Obviously, as you grow, which is the hope of all of us, you know, you might need additional insurance. And so keeping the same policy year after year may not be the right choice.
Right. And we don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but that kind of feeds into the first bullet point on this page, which is you might have had insurance to cover something that you no longer need covered. So this is the time to do that. And then the second bullet point is very important too, because your premiums can be affected by your creditworthiness.
And that's something that not all people realize. So lo que pagas para tu seguro a veces está conectado con tu crédito comercial o tu historial de crédito. Y es por eso a veces los inmigrantes pagan más, no porque son de alto riesgo, sino porque no tienen un historial muy fuerte de crédito, de tarjetas, de préstamos, etc. Entonces, maneja tu crédito personal y tu crédito comercial con mucha responsabilidad, aunque no tienes necesidad de sacar un préstamo. Hay que tener una línea de crédito que lo pagas mensualmente sin faltar, que sea un coche, una tarjeta, algo así. Eso fue el taller del mes pasado, que les recomiendo que lo vayan a mirar. Otra vez, I would recommend if you did not attend our workshop on business credit, that you take a look at that. We will post the link for all of the workshops again in just a couple minutes. And most people do not realize that their insurance premiums are connected to their credit score. And this is why it is so important to manage that well, and make sure that you understand, you know, what you're doing with those things. So let us know if we can help you. If you need an advisor to improve your credit score, that is also something that we can connect you to. And obviously, Comerica, as a banking institution, can also support that.
And I'm going to click through these others. These are just talking about why it's important to consider insurance. And so basically having the peace of mind allows you to go out and focus on growing your business and not worrying about what might happen to your business.
Right. Y siempre decimos que debes de enfocarte en crecer y trabajar como si ya estuvieras más grande, ¿verdad? Entonces eso es muy importante.
Yeah. And then some additional points to remember. You know, again, you want to make sure first and foremost that you want to make sure that your particular business is not required to purchase insurance by federal, state, or local laws. Making sure that you're paying and staying on top of your different required insurances, such as unemployment and workers' comp. The fact that you might have professional licenses that require insurance, and that understanding that lenders and investors may require you to have insurance to protect their investment or their loan. And I don't know, did you want to summarize that?
No, go ahead. I mean, it was everything that we'd already covered, so I think it's okay.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so let's see.
Yeah, and I think, you know, just the last thing that we just really want to say is make sure that you're working with a trusted advisor. And so on that note, Michael, why don't you go ahead and unshare your screen and we can go to gallery view.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask everyone if you would please to come on to your video. We've got about 20 minutes or so, and we have, you know, 2 experts here as well as our group from Comerica. So Stephanie, I'd like to ask you to share some of your experiences. If anybody has a question, all you have to do is come on video and unmute yourself, and we'll go ahead and call on you, or you can put your question in the chat, and we'll have either Stephanie, Chad, or Michael answer those questions. So Stephanie, go ahead and share what you'd like to share with us.
Sure. First things first, thank you so much, Michael, for that information. That was really great. That was a great presentation, and you kind of took us on a little journey there from liability and got us through workers' comp all the way to, you know, protecting ourselves as business owners in the event that something catastrophic may happen to the business. I did take some notes for some of the things you said, and I wanted to go over where you said a lot of people think insurance is optional. And it really isn't everyone. It's not just a piece of paper. A lot of people feel like it's just a piece of paper because they're asking for the certificate of insurance or they need it to get the job. Someone wants to be listed as the additional insured. And I know that most people would rather watch paint dry than to actually read these insurance contracts. But it is imperative that you are correctly insured, because what you don't want to happen is to be a business owner and put all of your blood, sweat, and tears into this business, everything that you have, only for it to be taken away because something for such as small as $100 a month could have prevented it, such as a slip and fall at someone's restaurant because someone forgot to shovel the snow, and now you're on the hook for that. I also want to skip over to the workers' comp really quick. That's important. I get a lot of calls about workers' comp insurance, and a lot of them are saying, hey, I don't have any employees. Why do I have to have it? Or some people will call and say, hey, I want the $750 workers' comp insurance. So I want to break that down really quick to you guys. What that $750 is for, what that means is that it covers absolutely nothing, just so you understand that. That is really for, that's, say that again?
Checkbox that you just have to grab and.
Yeah, because it really doesn't cover anything, but it does. A lot of people refer to it as the if any policy, because it will allow you to say when you started the policy, you didn't have any employees. It was just yourself. And later on, you picked up before the end of the year, you picked up some employees, then you go in and then they can audit the premium for you at that time. The workers' comp premium is based off how many employees you have, the type of work that they do, and of course how much you're paying them, the payroll. If you get the $750 policy and you don't add any employees on, you will receive a refund at the end of $550. Another quick thing I just want to touch on real quick is the additional insured. Michael, you did great talking about that. You were talking about how a lot of lenders do require that. I find that a lot with lenders, as well as people who are giving you the opportunity to come and work for them. So say you are a landscaper, the reason why you have to call me and get that piece of paper is they want to know that God forbid you do something and you're liable for it, you're going to be covered, and you do it on their property, that they're going to be covered for your mistake. If anyone has any questions, I know Chad is on here as well. You may want to say a few things.
Questions. So if anybody has, we've got about 20 minutes, 15 minutes here still. Okay. And just so everyone knows, I just put in the chat too, I put the link for the Google Drive for all of the previous webinars, and then this one will go in there as well. So as soon as we're done with this, we will do that. So thank you, Stephanie, for your expertise.
Last thing, one last thing.
Yeah.
Really important, business interruption insurance. That has been a hot topic as far as insurance in the news everywhere with what happened with COVID. Some people, a lot of businesses were denied claims because in some policies, there is a clause that says that communicable diseases are not covered. However, business interruption is still a very important endorsement to add on to your business owner's policy, because like the incident that you just mentioned, with what's going on Verner, with people running into buildings. I'd say one of those buildings were unable to open and generate money or generate income because
a couple of them did have to remain closed for a few weeks, so they should have had that interruption insurance.
And they would have been covered. So again, it is important to reach out to a trusted advisor and speak with someone to make sure that you cover, because again, you don't want to put all your blood, sweat, and tears into a business and then have it yanked away just because you didn't have the correct piece of paper.
All right, so Paula Andrinen is one of our consultants at the STBA, and we're working on a big e-commerce project. So Paula, why don't you do a quick little intro telling them what that is and then ask your question.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I'm actually working with STBA. We're putting together a really exciting program that is going to help businesses in Southwest Detroit to be able to be online. So what that means is that you're not only receiving a web page where you can sell products, services, etc., but also we can manage that for you. It's pretty much like a mega store, like if you think of Amazon or Etsy, where really the whole functionality, the security and everything is done on the same website. So really all we need to do is just help you maintain, you know, whether if you're a restaurant, the latest menu options or the latest products, but you don't have to worry about actually building the website from scratch. So that makes it a lot easier to go into market and also a lot easier to maintain. But I did want to talk to, you know, you guys that are expert on e-commerce. And I wanted to learn a little bit more about how each business that will be online, if they do need to do any insurance, e-commerce insurance, and also if they say besides the mega store, they own their own website, what kind of insurance should they be aware of?
Stephanie, do you have any experience with that?
That is actually a hot product right now, cyber liability, because if you're managing people's information online and credit cards, things of that sort, in some cases, it is an endorsement that's in some business owners' policies. Again, it depends on the carrier, but absolutely, there are policies for everything for the e-commerce, but definitely for that and that cyber liability, because a lot of people are working differently.
So Stephanie, we'll continue this conversation offline because I think it's probably a bigger conversation with you and Paula and Robert, but to discuss if we should carry a blanket policy for everyone or if we should also require each participant to carry a minimum amount of insurance for themselves. So, you know, I think we're going to be handling a lot of the transactions, but some things will be going, depending on their POS system, will be determined how we're managing the data. And so I think that's a really great question, Paula, that I had literally never thought of. So I'm really, really glad that you joined us tonight, because this is a really big project that we're working on, and it would be really horrible, again, if you're investing all this time and money and energy, and it would only take, you know, one litigious person to injure the whole process. So let's definitely think about what kind of coverage we might need. So does anyone else have a question? We've only got about maybe another 10-15 minutes. I would like Stephanie and Chad to put their contact information in the chat one more time, just to be safe. And if you have never saved a chat before, wait until Stephanie and Chad put their contact information there. But if you open the chat, there are 3 little dots. Si abres el chateo, hay 3 puntitos. And if you click on those 3 little dots, you can actually save the chat to your desktop. So you can get the hyperlinks and the contact information of everybody who responded. Puedes archivar el chateo en tu computadora para que puedas tener acceso a los enlaces y a todo eso. Les recomiendo eso. So Paula, would you do me a favor and drop the link as well, the SDBA link in the chat as well. So anyone else, any of our contractors have specific questions? Wendy, Ricardo, I mean, Najwa, you work with children. I imagine that you may have a very specific question. Hector, Eduardo, do we have anybody else have a very specific question that they'd like to ask? And I'm going to actually, at this time, I'm going to actually say goodnight and turn off our recording, but we'll stay online here.